there so little progress being made in clearing the backlog of apprentices waiting to access the off-the-job training in further education colleges and technological universities, given that 4,937 apprentices have currently been waiting over 6 months to be given a date to begin their off-the-job training? And can you let us know the steps you've taken to facilitate apprentices accessing training close to home? Over the last 2.5 years, we've seen a chronic, chaotic apprenticeship system, with 1 in 4 apprentices waiting for more than 6 months to even get a date to start their off-the-job training in either further education or technological university. And it's higher again for certain apprentices, such as electricians. And I'm really, really frustrated as the lack of progress that we're making in this area, but not half as frustrated as the apprenticeships themselves.
Well, thank Deputy Conway-Walsh for highlighting this important issue. I would say by any objective measure, just with some of your introductory remarks, I think by any objective measure there has been an unprecedented level of focus on apprenticeships by my department since its creation. In fact, I'd argue that one of the big benefits of the establishment of my department 2.5 years ago was a policy focus on the areas of apprenticeship, whether that's the Apprenticeship Action Plan, a new National Apprenticeship Office, highest number ever of new registered apprentices last year, highest ever, 8,607, an employer grant, a huge range of courses, massive capital investment. You and I were talking about this in Castlebar during the week to try and address some of the issues so that we can train more apprentices, but train more apprentices in the regions. However, I fully accept that there are real challenges in relation to what can be termed the COVID backlog, what can be termed a situation where learning all had to go online, and obviously you can't do your entire apprenticeship online. And the practical elements of that did significantly deteriorate during that time. There has been a substantial increase in apprenticeship registrations, 40% extra in 2021 compared to 2019, the last normal year before the pandemic. The strong growth is welcome. Indeed, it's essential to meet our construction needs, our green skills needs. And the apprenticeship system has, however, been engaging with meeting this greatly increasing demand, while at the same time trying to recover from the impact of extended closures during COVID of the training system. There has been a major response across the craft apprenticeship system, and I want to thank everybody involved in this, to the delays in accessing off-the-job training, and they have made significant progress achieved in the numbers waiting over 6 months. This stood at 5,300 in August. It's now reduced to 4,937, notwithstanding the fact that there's been so many new registrations coming on at the same time. It is important to understand that those waiting over 6 months, which is reducing in absolute terms, also turns over continually, with those accessing training coming off the list throughout the year. I can assure the Deputy, and I'll have a chance to come back in now, that absolutely everything humanly possible to get this backlog done is being done, and I'll take you through those measures in a moment.
Yeah, and Minister, what I want to know is, when is the backlog going to be dealt with? Because you see, when I ask questions, I get a different answer every time. So in terms of even comparing figures, so last year we were working on figures on what the waiting list was, which was just over 8,000 people. This year we get the ones that are waiting just under 6 months. So it's very difficult to decipher. And in the meantime, we have a situation where so many apprentices, and I know they're contacting you as well, because they're contacting me in terms of apprentices that are waiting, and I'm really concerned about the impact that this is not having on them financially and also on their mental health and well-being. And we need to look as well at the number of apprentices who have dropped out of the system because of this. So whatever about new apprentices, and I always welcome new apprentices, we have to deal with the backlog, and we have to face up to a situation that's there where people are having to wait too long, having to wait to do an apprentice that was supposed to take 4 years, taking 5 and 6 years, just is not on.
Yeah, no, there is no changing of the answers that you get. I mean, I suppose there was over 11,000 people waiting in August 2021. That was the peak. We engaged very intensively with Solas to find out what normal time would somebody generally wait. So forgetting COVID, if COVID had never happened, what's normal time would somebody generally wait between one phase and the other? And that's 6 months. So that's the standard time people wait between moving from one phase to the other, as part of what they call the SPA apprenticeship model. And so now I think it's quite right and proper that we make sure that the 6 months, the people not waiting longer than the 6 months, is the genuine COVID backlog. That number is falling. It's falling in real terms. It is genuinely, truthfully falling. But I absolutely accept that there is more work that needs to be done, that we won't rest until it is fully gone. The programmes with the longest waiting lists, which were electrical, plumbing and carpentry, have been reformed, and these changes are now running through the system with increased numbers of apprentices being called to off-the-job training. In addition, all classes that had been running at half capacity are now back at full. Capital funding of 20 million was provided to extend and upgrade facilities. A further fund of 17 million has been provided as well, and I can take the deputy, sorry I'm out of time, but I can take you through them.
Thank you, Minister. Going into an apprenticeship needs to be attractive to young people, indeed to people throughout their life cycle. They get paid very little for the very hard work that they do, and the government and Solace needs to be getting this right, because we know years of underinvestment has led to a shortage of capacity in the system. But the fact is that only 1,798 apprentices became fully qualified tradespeople in 2021, and that is close to 600 fewer than in 2020, and represents the lowest number of newly qualified tradespeople since 2017. And this is a really serious situation. We also, Minister, have to look at the off-site training places to make them closer to home. We all know what the accommodation, what the housing situation is done. I would ask you to ask everybody involved in apprentices and making the decisions that they place apprentices as near as possible to home, so that we cut down on some of the costs that's involved for apprentices. Minister, to conclude.
I agree with the last point, but I mean, I think the Deputy knows when quoting those figures that obviously COVID had an impact on the pace at which people were able to fully qualify as an apprentice. I don't think that's news. I think that's a reality of the COVID pandemic, where our training centres had to shut down for a sustained period of times to keep people safe. But the more important figures is that more people than ever before are putting up their hand and saying, I want to be an apprentice. And those figures are there too, and we're seeing very, very strong figures as well. But yes, we have to work to make apprenticeships as attractive as possible. The Deputy is entirely correct on that. But I think the Deputy, or certainly hope the Deputy would agree, that resources isn't the issue here. Every cent that is being sought by Solace, by the ETBs to expand apprenticeships is forthcoming. We're developing and expanding apprenticeship facilities literally all around the country. We've already put 20 million into capital to deal with the backlog, a further 17 million in, 6 million of that's to train, bring in additional instructors. Over 100 additional posts have been approved, and I really want to see our technological universities now and our new FET colleges of the future become those apprenticeship hubs in the region, so people can, as you say, access that training closer to home and in their community.